My husband's mother said, "You're too career-focused to be a good wife," until she needed me to hire her after she got laid off. It started at our wedding rehearsal dinner. I was checking my phone during dessert because I had a presentation the next week that could make my career. She leaned over and whispered loud enough for the entire table to hear, "Poor Theo. He's marrying his phone, not a woman." For the first 2 years of our marriage, every family dinner was the same routine. She'd ask when we were having kids. I'd mention a promotion or a new project. She'd sigh dramatically and say, "A real wife makes a home, not PowerPoints." Theo would squeeze my hand under the table and stay quiet. His dad would change the subject. His sister would stare at her plate. Then the comments got sharper. When I got promoted to director at 31, she told me at Christmas that no man wants a wife who's more successful than him. When I bought Theo noise-canceling headphones for his home office so he could focus on his music, she said I was trying to control him. When we decided to wait on kids until my 30s, she posted Facebook articles about declining fertility and tagged me in every single one. I tried everything. I invited her to lunch, sent her flowers on her birthday, asked for her advice on recipes I already knew how to make. Nothing worked. To her, I was the career-obsessed woman who trapped her precious son. Last March, her company downsized. She'd worked in HR for 23 years and suddenly found herself on the other side of the table. She called Theo crying. Then she called me. "I know we've had our differences," she said, her voice tight. "But I heard your company is hiring and I need a job. Could you put in a word?" I could have said no. Should have, maybe. But I'm not built that way. I scheduled her an interview with our HR team, gave her tips on updating her resume, and coached her through the process. She got the job. Started 2 weeks later. Reported directly to my department. For the first month, she was grateful. Thanked me constantly, brought me coffee. Then she got comfortable, started arriving late, pushed back on assignments, made comments in meetings about how things were done at her old company, which was ironic considering they'd laid her off. When I gave her feedback privately, professionally, she went home and told Theo I was targeting her. The breaking point came during our quarterly review meeting. I'd been documenting everything, her attendance issues, missed deadlines, complaints from other team members. My boss was there, 2 other directors. When I outlined the performance concerns, she started crying, right there in the conference room. "I knew you resented me," she said, mascara running down her face. "You've been trying to get rid of me since day one." My boss looked uncomfortable. The other directors shifted in their seats. I kept my voice steady and walked through every documented incident. Times, dates, emails, witness statements. My boss nodded slowly and said we'd continue this discussion later. After everyone left, she stood in my office doorway. Her tears were gone. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "Family doesn't forget." That night, I got home to find Theo's bags packed. Not hers, his. "She told me everything," he said. His eyes were cold in a way I'd never seen. "How you've been sabotaging her, making her life hell because you never wanted her there." "That's not what happened," I started. "Then why is my mother crying in our guest room right now?" he asked. "Why did she have to move in with us because she can't afford rent anymore after you destroyed her career?" I stood there, frozen. She was in our guest room. She'd moved in while I was at work. And somehow, I was the villain in a story I didn't even know I was in. I looked at Theo, really looked at him, and realized he'd already chosen his side. He always had. "If you walk out that door," I started to say, but he was already turning the handle. He paused for just a second, long enough for me to see the doubt flicker across his face. Then his mother called from upstairs, her voice weak and trembling. "Theo, honey, is everything okay?" The doubt vanished. He grabbed his bags and left. I heard his car start and his mother's bedroom door close. The house was mine, but so was she. That first night, I sat in my living room until 3 a.m., staring at the walls I'd painted, the furniture we'd chosen together, the life I'd built. Upstairs, I could hear her moving around, opening drawers, running water, making herself at home in my house while my husband slept God knows where. I called my best friend Vanessa at 6 a.m. She answered on the first ring. "I've been waiting for your call," she said. "Theo's been posting cryptic shit on Facebook about toxic people destroying families. What happened?" I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You know you can legally evict her, right? It's your house. Your name is on the deed. And look like the monster who threw her homeless mother-in-law onto the street? That's exactly what she wants. So what are you going to do?" I looked up at the ceiling, imagining her up there, probably smiling. "I'm going to document everything, just like I did at work. And I'm going to wait. For what? For her to hang herself with her own rope." Monday morning, I went to work early. My boss called me into his office before 8 a.m. He looked tired. "We need to talk about Patricia," he said, using my mother-in-law's first name. "HR has received a formal complaint. She's claiming hostile work environment and discrimination." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. "Based on what?" "Based on the fact that you're her daughter-in-law and she believes you've been treating her unfairly because of personal issues." He leaned back in his chair. "I've reviewed your documentation. It's thorough. But this complicates things. We may need to move her to a different department. Or," I said carefully, "you could review her actual performance metrics against other employees at her level. I think you'll find the numbers speak for themselves." He studied me for a moment. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" "I didn't create this situation. I'm just refusing to be punished for trying to manage it professionally." He nodded slowly. "Give me a week. I'll review everything with legal." When I got home that evening, the house smelled like pot roast. I found my mother-in-law in the kitchen, wearing one of my aprons, setting the table for 2. "I thought we should have a proper dinner," she said sweetly. "Clear the air. I'm not hungry." "Nonsense. You work such long hours. You need to eat." She pulled out a chair. "Sit." I remained standing. "Why are you really here?" Her smile didn't waver. "Because my son asked me to stay. Because I have nowhere else to go. Because despite everything, we're family. Family, I repeated. Is that what you told Theo? That I'm destroying his family? I told him the truth, that you've made my life hell since the day you married him, that you've always resented me, that you saw an opportunity to get rid of me and you took it. Every word of that is a lie. She set down the serving spoon with deliberate care. Is it? You pushed me out at work. You embarrassed me in front of your colleagues. And now you want me gone from here too. But Theo knows who you really are now. A woman who puts her career above everything, even her own marriage. I grabbed my keys. Enjoy your pot roast. I drove to Vanessa's apartment and stayed there for 3 days. She didn't ask questions, just made up her couch and handed me wine. On the third night, Theo finally called. You need to come home, he said. No greeting, no warmth. To my house where your mother is living without my permission? She's family. She needs help. And what about me? What about what I need? Silence. Then, I thought I knew you, but my mom was right. You're not who I thought you were. Your mom, I said slowly, has been manipulating you since before we got married. And you've let her. She's my mother. Of course I'm going to believe her over your wife? Your partner? The person you promised to build a life with? More silence. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. Just come home. We need to figure this out. No, you need to figure out who you're married to, her or me. Because right now she's sleeping in our guest room and I'm sleeping on someone else's couch. You made your choice. I hung up. Vanessa looked at me from the kitchen. That was cold. Good. The next morning, I went back to my house at 10 a.m. when I knew my mother-in-law would be at work. I walked through every room, checking what she'd touched, what she'd moved. In the guest room, I found her clothes hung in the closet, her toiletries spread across the bathroom counter, her reading glasses on the nightstand. She'd made herself at home. In my bedroom, our bedroom, I found Theo's side of the closet empty. He'd come back for his things while I was gone. I sat on the edge of our bed and tried to remember the last time we'd been happy. Really happy. Not just going through the motions, but actually connected. I couldn't. I called a locksmith, changed every lock in the house. When my mother-in-law came home that evening, her key didn't work. She pounded on the door. Open this door right now. I live here. I opened it, but blocked the entrance. No, you don't. This is my house. My name is on the deed. You're not on the lease. You have no legal right to be here, and I'm asking you to leave. Her face transformed. The sweet mother-in-law mask dropped completely. You can't do this. Theo doesn't live here anymore, and neither do you. I pointed to the driveway where I'd set her 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. I've packed your things. You have 10 minutes to load your car and leave, or I'm calling the police. You vindictive bitch, she hissed. This is what you wanted all along, to isolate him, to turn him against his own family. No, I said calmly. What I wanted was a partner who had my back. What I got was a man who chose his mother over his wife every single time. You didn't have to turn him against me. He was never really on my side to begin with. She grabbed her phone. I'm calling Theo. Go ahead. Tell him I evicted you. Tell him I'm the monster you always said I was. It doesn't matter anymore. The truth is, in the documentation, in the performance reviews, in every witness statement from my colleagues, you failed at your job because you're not good at it. You blamed me because you needed a villain. And Theo believed you because it was easier than admitting his mother isn't perfect. She called him. I watched her face as she spoke, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. When she hung up, she looked at me with pure hatred. He's on his way. Good. He can help you load your car. Theo arrived 20 minutes later. He looked between us, his face confused. What's going on? She's kicking me out, his mother said, tears streaming down her face. She changed the locks. She won't let me in my own home. It's not your home, I said to Theo. It never was. She moved in without asking me while I was at work after you left. I'm not obligated to house her. She's my mother. She has nowhere to go. Then she can stay with you, wherever you've been staying for the past week. He flinched. I've been at Derek's apartment. There's no room for... Not my problem. I looked at his mother. 9 minutes. You can't just throw her out on the street. I'm not. I'm giving her 9 minutes to take her belongings and leave my property. That's more courtesy than she showed me when she moved in. His mother grabbed his arm. Theo, please. Don't let her do this to me. I watched him struggle. Watched him look at his crying mother, then at me, then back again. Watched him make the same choice he'd been making our entire marriage. Fine, he said finally. She'll stay with me. I'll figure something out. Perfect. I stepped back inside and started to close the door. Wait, he said. We need to talk about us. There is no us anymore. You made that clear when you walked out. I was angry. I was defending my mom. You humiliated her at work. I held her accountable for her performance. If she were anyone else, would you be this defensive? He didn't answer. His mother tugged on his arm. Come on, honey, let's go. You can see what kind of person she really is. I closed the door, locked it, listened to them argue outside for another 5 minutes before their voices faded. Through the window, I watched them load her things into his car, watched them drive away. Then I sat on my couch and cried for the first time in a week. The next morning at work, I was called into another meeting. My boss was there, along with the HR director and a lawyer I didn't recognize. My mother-in-law sat across the table, her hands folded primly, her face carefully composed. Thank you for coming, the HR director said. Her name was Opal, and she'd always been fair. Patricia has made some serious allegations. We need to address them properly. I understand. She claims you've created a hostile work environment based on your personal relationship, that you've singled her out for criticism, given her impossible tasks, and publicly embarrassed her in retaliation for family disputes. I opened my laptop. I have documentation that refutes every one of those claims. Would you like me to walk through it? For the next hour, I presented everything. Attendance records showing my mother-in-law had been late or absent 23 times in 3 months. Email chains showing I'd assigned her the same tasks given to 2 other employees at her level, both of whom had completed them on time. Performance metrics showing she ranked in the bottom 15% of her department. Witness statements from 4 colleagues describing her complaints about me in the break room. I showed them the message she'd sent to another employee. My daughter-in-law is trying to get me fired. Don't trust anything she says. I showed them her Facebook posts about workplace bullying, posted during work hours. I showed them everything. When I finished, Opal looked at my mother-in-law. Do you have documentation to support your claims? I shouldn't need documentation. Anyone can see she has a conflict of interest. She's my daughter-in-law. She should never have been allowed to supervise me. You're right, my boss said. There is a conflict of interest, which is why I'm moving you to the marketing department, effective immediately. You'll report to Gideon Foster. He has no personal relationship with you. Your performance will be evaluated by objective metrics. If you meet expectations, this matter is closed. If you don't, he let the implication hang. My mother-in-law's face went red. You're taking her side? We're taking the side of documented facts, Opal said. You're welcome to file a formal complaint with the EEOC if you believe you've been discriminated against, but I'd advise reviewing the evidence first. She stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. I knew coming here was a mistake. Then perhaps you should have performed better while you were here, I said quietly. She glared at me. You've destroyed my relationship with my son. You've humiliated me professionally. But karma has a way of catching up with people like you. People like me, I repeated. You mean people who work hard and expect others to do the same? She left without answering. After the door closed, my boss looked at me. That was rough. It's been rough for 3 months. I know, and I'm sorry we let it get this far. He stood up. For what it's worth, you handled this exactly right. Professional, documented, by the book. I hope your personal situation resolves itself too, but it didn't resolve itself. It got worse. Theo started calling me 5 times a day. His mother was staying with him at Derek's 1-bedroom apartment. They were sleeping in shifts. She was crying constantly, telling him I'd ruined her life, destroyed her career, stolen her son. He was exhausted, guilty, confused. He wanted to come home. You can, I told him during one call, but she can't. I can't just abandon my mother. She's devastated. She's manipulating you. She has been for years, and you're letting her. That's not fair. None of this is fair. But I'm done being the villain in her story. If you want to come home, you come alone. If you want to stay with her, that's your choice. But I'm not living with someone who actively despises me. She doesn't despise you. She's just hurt. Theo, listen to yourself. She called me a vindictive bitch to my face. She's told everyone we know that I'm trying to destroy her. She moved into our house without my permission. She filed a false complaint against me at work. At what point do you admit she's not the victim here? Silence. Then, I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But time didn't help. 2 weeks later, I got a certified letter. Theo wanted a legal separation. His mother had convinced him that I was toxic, that our marriage was unsalvageable, that he deserved better. The letter cited irreconcilable differences. It mentioned my career obsession and hostile behavior toward family members. I called a lawyer that same day. Her name was Ramona, and she was recommended by Vanessa's divorce attorney sister. When I explained the situation, she listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Do you have documentation?" "Of everything." "Good, because this is going to get ugly." She was right. My mother-in-law had convinced Theo to file for divorce, not separation. She'd helped him find a lawyer, paid his retainer, and coached him on what to say. According to his filing, I had been emotionally abusive, financially controlling, and had driven a wedge between him and his family. He wanted the house, half my retirement account, and spousal support. He wants what? Ramona said, reading the papers. He's employed. He makes decent money. He has no grounds for spousal support. His mother probably told him to ask for it anyway. Well, she's an idiot. This makes him look vindictive. She set down the papers. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to bury them in documentation. Every text message, every email, every instance where she undermined you, where he chose her over you, where they conspired against you. We're going to show the judge exactly who the toxic family member is. The next 6 months were hell. Every asset I'd worked for was picked apart in legal filings. Every decision I'd made in our marriage was questioned. Theo's lawyer painted me as a cold, calculating career woman who had never wanted a real partnership. My mother-in-law provided a 10-page statement describing my pattern of emotional abuse. But Ramona was brilliant. She subpoenaed my mother-in-law's work records, showing her poor performance across multiple jobs. She presented text messages where my mother-in-law had bragged to friends about finally getting rid of her. She showed Facebook posts where she'd been planning to move in with us since before she lost her job. She proved premeditation. The judge was a woman in her 60s who listened to everything with a neutral expression. When it was time for testimony, Theo went first. He described our marriage as one-sided, claimed I'd never made time for him, said I'd deliberately sabotaged his mother to hurt him. Then it was my turn. Ramona asked me one question. "Did you love your husband?" "Yes," I said. "I loved him enough to help his mother when she needed it, even though she'd spent years criticizing me. I loved him enough to try to make it work when any reasonable person would have left. I loved him enough to wait for him to choose me over her, but he never did." "And do you love him now?" I looked at Theo across the courtroom. He couldn't meet my eyes. "No, I don't love someone who believes the worst about me, who never defended me, who chose his mother's lies over his wife's truth. That's not love, that's obligation, and I'm done with it." The judge awarded me the house, my full retirement account, and no spousal support for anyone. She ruled that Theo had abandoned the marriage without cause and had failed to prove any of his allegations. In her written opinion, she noted, "The evidence shows a pattern of manipulation by the husband's mother, which the husband failed to recognize or resist. The plaintiff maintained professional standards at work and personal boundaries at home, while the defendant and his mother conspired to paint her as the aggressor. When the ruling came down, my mother-in-law was in the courtroom. She stood up and screamed, "This is a travesty! That woman destroyed my son's life!" The judge looked at her coldly. "Ma'am, sit down or I'll have you removed for contempt." She sat, but the hatred in her eyes was real and raw and terrifying. After the divorce was finalized, I thought it would be over. I thought I could rebuild my life, move on, find peace. But my mother-in-law wasn't done. She started a blog called My Son's Narcissistic Ex-Wife. She posted about me 3 times a week, never using my name but describing our situation in enough detail that anyone who knew us would recognize the story. She wrote about how I'd weaponized the workplace against her, how I'd isolated Theo from his family, how I'd destroyed their relationship. The blog got popular. Other mothers and daughters-in-law shared their stories in the comments. My mother-in-law positioned herself as a victim advocate, warning others about career-obsessed women who valued ambition over family. She gave interviews to podcasts about toxic relationships. She built an online following. Then someone from my company found the blog. Within days, it had spread through the office. People stared at me in the hallways, whispered when I walked by. My boss called me in again. "I don't know what to do here," he admitted. "She's not violating any laws. She's not naming you specifically, but everyone knows it's about you. So what happens now?" "Nothing, officially. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't affecting the team. People are taking sides." I contacted a lawyer specializing in cyber harassment. He read through the blog and shook his head. "She's been careful. Nothing here crosses into defamation. It's all her opinion, her feelings, her perspective. You could try a cease and desist, but it might make things worse." "How could it possibly be worse?" "She could claim you're trying to silence a victim, turn it into a free speech issue, get even more attention." He leaned back. "My honest advice? Ignore it. Don't engage. She'll get bored eventually." But she didn't get bored. She escalated. She started showing up at my workplace, standing outside with signs about workplace bullying. Security escorted her off the property 3 times. She filed complaints with the EEOC, which were investigated and dismissed. She contacted my clients, trying to warn them about my character issues. I got a restraining order. It didn't stop her. She just shifted tactics. She convinced Theo to write an open letter about our divorce, which she published on her blog. In it, he described me as cold, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. He said he'd been blind to my true nature, that his mother had tried to warn him, that he deeply regretted marrying me. Reading those words hurt more than anything else. Not because they were true, but because they showed how completely she'd poisoned him against me. The man I'd married, the man I'd loved, was gone. In his place was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could write those things and believe them. I started therapy. Dr. Rivera was a woman in her 50s who specialized in family trauma. When I told her everything, she nodded slowly. "You know what you're dealing with, right? A manipulative mother-in-law? A narcissist, and by extension, her enabling son. This isn't just about her not liking you. This is about her losing control over him when you got married. And she's been trying to get that control back ever since. So what do? You go no contact. Completely. Block them on everything. Don't respond to anything. Don't defend yourself. And most importantly, you live well. That's the best revenge against a narcissist. They want you to suffer. They feed on your pain. When you stop giving them that, when you move on and find happiness, it destroys them." I took her advice. I blocked my mother-in-law and everything. I blocked Theo. I blocked his family and friends. I stopped reading the blog, stopped checking to see what lies she was spreading. I focused on work, on my friends, on rebuilding my life. 6 months later, I got a promotion. Senior Director of Operations. It came with a significant raise in a corner office. I took Vanessa out to celebrate, and for the first time in a year, I felt genuinely happy. "You're glowing," she said, raising her glass. "This is the you I remember." I forgot what it felt like, I admitted. To not be constantly defending myself. To just exist without someone analyzing my every move. "You deserve this. All of it." The next morning, I found out my mother-in-law's blog had been taken down. Not by me, not by lawyers, but by the platform itself. Someone had reported it for harassment, and after review, they determined it violated their terms of service. She tried to start a new one, but it was removed within days. Her online presence, her victim platform, was gone. I don't know who reported her. Maybe multiple people. Maybe someone from work who was tired of the drama. Maybe someone from her own life who saw through her act. I didn't care. I just felt lighter. Then Theo called. I shouldn't have answered. I'd blocked his number, but he called from a different phone, and I picked up out of habit. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't. Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. He looked terrible. Thinner, older, exhausted. He sat across from me and immediately started crying. "I'm so sorry," he said. "For everything. You were right. About all of it." "What happened?" "My mom. She's been living with me for 8 months. She doesn't work, doesn't look for work, just sits around complaining about how everyone wronged her. I tried to set boundaries and she threatened to kill herself. I tried to make her leave, and she called everyone we know saying I was abandoning her. I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this." I felt nothing. No sympathy, no vindication, no satisfaction, just emptiness. "So why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to try again. Us. I want to fix what I broke." I stood up. "There's no us anymore. You chose her over me every single time. And now that you're stuck with the consequences, you want me to save you? No. Figure it out yourself. I love you. You love the idea of me. The wife who had her shit together, who made good money, who made your life easier. But you never actually respected me. You never defended me. You let your mother walk all over both of us. And when I finally stood up for myself, you punished me for it. That's not love. That's convenience. I left him there, crying into his coffee, and I meant what I said. There was nothing left between us except shared history and paperwork. 3 months later, I started dating. His name was Leonard, and he was a project manager at a different company. He was kind, funny, and most importantly, he had healthy boundaries with his family. When I told him about my ex-husband and his mother, he listened without judgment. That sounds like a nightmare, he said. I'm sorry you went through that. It taught me what I won't tolerate. Good. Everyone should have that clarity. We'd been dating for 2 months when I ran into Theo at the grocery store. He was with his mother, pushing a cart full of frozen dinners and cheap wine. He looked worse than before. She looked triumphant. When she saw me, she grabbed his arm possessively. Come on, honey. We don't need anything from this aisle. But Theo stared at me with such raw desperation that I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered everything. The wedding rehearsal dinner, the quarterly review meeting, the day he chose her over me, the letter requesting spousal support, all of it. And the pity died before it could take root. I turned to Leonard, who was reading ingredients on a pasta sauce jar, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding 3 feet away. Found one, he said, showing me the jar. No added sugar like you wanted. Perfect, I said, loud enough for them to hear. Thanks for remembering. We walked away. I didn't look back, but I felt my mother-in-law's eyes boring into my spine, felt her rage at my apparent happiness. And I smiled, because Dr. Rivera was right. The best revenge against a narcissist is living well. That would have been the end of the story? Should have been. But my mother-in-law wasn't finished. She tried one more time to destroy me. She went to HR at my company with new allegations. She claimed I'd threatened her physically, that I'd harassed her after she left the company, that I'd spread lies about her to ruin her reputation. She had witnesses, she said, people who would testify to my abusive behavior. HR called me in for another meeting. This time, I brought Ramona. This is a bad faith complaint, Ramona said immediately. My client has a restraining order against this woman. Any contact between them has been documented and initiated by Ms. Patricia, not my client. If this company continues to entertain these baseless allegations, we'll consider it retaliation for my client's previous protected activities. Opal from HR looked tired. We have to investigate every complaint. Then investigate quickly, Ramona said, because this is the 3rd time this woman has tried to weaponize your HR department against my client. At some point, you need to recognize a pattern of bad faith behavior. The investigation took 1 week. My mother-in-law's witnesses were 2 friends who admitted they'd never actually seen me interact with her. Her evidence was a series of screenshots from social media accounts that didn't belong to me. Her entire case fell apart under basic scrutiny. HR closed the investigation and sent her a cease and desist letter. If she filed another complaint, they warned, they'd pursue legal action for harassment. I thought that would be the end. But 3 months later, my mother-in-law tried to sue me for defamation. She claimed I'd ruined her reputation and destroyed her career opportunities. She was seeking $250,000 in damages. Ramona laughed when she read the filing. This is going to get thrown out so fast. She has no case, no evidence, no damages. This is just another attempt to harass you. She was right. The judge dismissed the case within 30 days and ordered my mother-in-law to pay my legal fees. In the written ruling, the judge noted, the defendant has filed multiple baseless complaints and lawsuits against the plaintiff, showing a pattern of vexatious litigation. This court will not allow itself to be used as a weapon in the defendant's personal vendetta. After that, silence. Complete and total silence. She stopped calling, stopped filing complaints, stopped trying to contact me through mutual acquaintances. For 6 months, nothing. I started to believe it was finally over, started to relax, started to rebuild without constantly looking over my shoulder. Then Vanessa called me at work one afternoon. You need to see this, she said, her voice strange. I'm sending you a link. The link was to a GoFundMe page. The title was, Help a Victim of Workplace Abuse Find Justice. My mother-in-law had posted her entire sob story, the career-focused daughter-in-law who'd stolen her son, the workplace persecution, the divorce, the legal fee. She was asking for $50,000 to continue her fight against corporate corruption and family destruction. The page had been up for 3 days and had raised $847 from 12 people who believed her story. In the update section, she'd posted photos of me, of my house, of my car, with captions describing how I'd profited from her suffering. She'd doxed me, completely. My address, my employer, my car's license plate, everything. I felt sick. This is illegal, right? It's definitely something, Vanessa said. Call Ramona. Ramona was furious. This is beyond the pale. She's putting you at risk. We're getting a restraining order strengthened. We're filing a motion to have this taken down, and we're going to make sure she understands there are consequences for this behavior. The GoFundMe was removed within 48 hours. The strengthened restraining order prohibited my mother-in-law from posting about me anywhere, under penalty of arrest. And finally, mercifully, it stopped. She went quiet, stayed quiet, moved on to some other target, some other perceived injustice. But the damage was done. For months, I jumped at shadows, checked over my shoulder in parking lots, worried that one of her online followers would find me, believe her lies, try to hurt me. I installed security cameras, changed my daily routines, looked into moving even though I loved my house. Dr. Rivera helped me process the trauma. You survived, she reminded me. You stood your ground against someone who wanted to break you, and you didn't break. That takes incredible strength. I don't feel strong. I feel exhausted. That's normal. You've been in fight or flight mode for years. Your body needs time to realize the threat is gone. It took time, a lot of time, but slowly, gradually, I started to feel safe again. Leonard was patient through all of it. He never pushed, never judged, just gave me space to heal. "I'm not going anywhere," he'd say when I apologized for being paranoid or jumpy. "Take all the time you need." A year after the GoFundMe incident, Leonard proposed. We got married in a small ceremony with just our closest friends. No family drama, no uninvited guests, no one standing up to object, just two people who chose each other, fully and completely, without obligation or manipulation. It was perfect. 2 years after that, I ran into Theo one last time. I was at a restaurant with Leonard and some friends, celebrating a work milestone. Theo was there with a woman I didn't recognize. Not his mother. A date, maybe. He looked better, healthier. When he saw me, he did something I didn't expect. He mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." I nodded. Not forgiveness, exactly. Just acknowledgement. We'd both survived. We'd both moved on, and that was enough. I never saw his mother again. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved to Florida, that she was telling anyone who'd listen about her ungrateful son and his terrible ex-wife, that she was still playing the victim. But it didn't touch me anymore. She was just background noise in a life I'd rebuilt from scratch. A cautionary tale about what happens when you let toxic people make themselves at home in your life. Because that's what I'd learned. That your life is yours. Your house is yours. Your boundaries are yours. And when someone tries to take those things, tries to paint you as the villain for defending what's rightfully yours, you stand firm. You document everything. You let the truth speak for itself. And you refuse to be the monster in someone else's story, even when they're screaming that narrative to anyone who'll listen. My mother-in-law wanted me to fail, wanted me to break, wanted me to be as miserable as she was. But I didn't. I built a career I'm proud of. I found a partner who respects me. I created a life that's mine, fully and completely. And every day I wake up in my house, the one I earned, the one I fought for, the one that's finally peacefully mine, I remember what Dr. Rivera said. The best revenge against a narcissist is living well. And I'm living very well indeed. Sometimes late at night, when I can't sleep, I think about that moment when Theo walked out the door, when his mother's voice called from upstairs and he chose her over me. I used to feel angry about it, betrayed, heartbroken. But now I just feel grateful. Because that moment, as painful as it was, showed me exactly who I was dealing with. It forced me to stop hoping for change and start protecting myself. It taught me that love without respect is just obligation. And obligation isn't enough to build a life on. I think about the woman I was at our wedding rehearsal dinner, checking my phone during dessert, trying to balance ambition with family approval. I think about how hard I tried to make his mother like me, how many times I swallowed my pride and asked for her advice on recipes I already knew how to make, how I invited her to lunches she spent criticizing me, how I helped her get a job that she then used as ammunition against me. And I realize now that it was never about me. I could have been perfect, could have quit my job and stayed home and given her grandchildren on command, and she still would have found something to hate. Because the problem wasn't that I was too career-focused or too ambitious or too independent. The problem was that I existed, that her son had chosen me, had built a life with me, had moved on from her, and she couldn't tolerate that. So she spent years trying to drive us apart, undermining me at every family dinner, planting doubt in his mind with every comment about real wives and successful men, waiting for an opportunity to insert herself between us permanently. And when I gave her that opportunity, when I helped her get a job out of kindness, she took it. She used my compassion as a weapon, my professionalism as evidence of cruelty, my boundaries as proof of abuse. She built a narrative where she was the victim and I was the villain, and she sold that narrative so well that my own husband believed it, left me for it, filed for divorce over it. But narratives aren't truth, and the truth always comes out eventually. In documented emails and performance reviews and witness statements, in court rulings and dismissed complaints and restraining orders, the truth is that I was good at my job, good at my marriage, and good to his mother despite everything. The truth is that she was threatened by my success, jealous of my relationship with her son, and willing to destroy both to regain control. The truth is that Theo was too weak to see through her manipulation, too loyal to question her lies, too afraid to choose his wife over his mother when it mattered most. And the truth is that I'm better off without both of them, without the constant criticism and the walking on eggshells, and the wondering if this family dinner would be the one where she finally went too far. Without the man who loved me but didn't respect me, who squeezed my hand under the table but never actually defended me, who packed his bags and left when his mother cried. I'm better off in my quiet house with my security cameras and my corner office and my partner who actually has my back. I'm better off with friends who believed me, lawyers who fought for me, and a therapist who helped me understand that surviving that kind of sustained psychological warfare wasn't weakness. It was strength. 5 years after the divorce, I'm sitting in that corner office looking at the city through floor-to-ceiling windows, and I'm thinking about what my mother-in-law said at our wedding rehearsal dinner. Poor Theo. He's marrying his phone, not a woman. She meant it as an insult, as proof that I'd never be the wife he needed. But she was wrong. I wasn't marrying my phone. I was marrying a man I thought was my partner, my equal, my person. I was wrong about him, but I wasn't wrong about myself. I was exactly the woman I thought I was. Ambitious, yes. Career-focused, absolutely. But also kind enough to help someone who hated me, strong enough to stand up when that kindness was weaponized, and smart enough to document everything so the truth would prevail. My mother-in-law wanted to teach me a lesson about knowing my place, about putting family first, about being a real wife instead of a career woman. But the lesson I learned was different. I learned that some people will hate you no matter what you do, that family can be toxic, that love without respect is worthless, That documentation is power. That courts and HR departments and reasonable people will side with facts over feelings. That you can survive sustained psychological warfare and come out stronger. That the house can be yours. That the career can be yours. That the life can be yours. And that when someone tries to take those things, you fight back. Professionally, legally, without apology. She thought she was teaching me to be smaller, quieter, more compliant. But she actually taught me to be immovable, unbreakable, absolutely certain of my worth. And for that, in a twisted way, I'm almost grateful. Because the woman I am now, the woman sitting in this corner office with a promotion I earned and a partner I chose and a life I built from scratch, is someone who will never again let anyone make themselves at home in my space without permission. Someone who knows the difference between kindness and weakness. Someone who understands that the best revenge against people like her isn't rage or retaliation. It's success, happiness, peace. A life lived so well that their bitterness can't touch it. So thank you, Patricia. Thank you for showing me exactly who you were. Thank you for teaching your son to choose you over me so I could learn what I deserved. Thank you for the lawsuits and the complaints and the blog and the GoFundMe. Thank you for trying so hard to destroy me that you documented your own psychological abuse. Thank you for being so obvious, so relentless, so determined to prove I was the villain that everyone else could see you were the problem. And thank you, most of all, for failing, for trying with everything you had to break me and watching me refuse to break. Watching me stand up, document, fight back, and win. Watching me move on, watching me thrive. The house was mine, but so was she, for a little while. But I took my house back, and she's gone now, living in Florida, probably telling the same stories to new people who don't know any, probably building new narratives where she's the victim and everyone else is wrong. Probably still furious that I got promoted, got remarried, got happy. But that's her problem now, not mine. I look at the photo on my desk. Leonard and me on our wedding day, smiling at each other like we're the only two people in the world. No family drama, no uninvited guests, no one whispering that I'm too career-focused to be a good wife. Just us, choosing each other, building a life together, making it work. And I think about how different this is from my first wedding, how much stronger I am, how much clearer about what I want and what I won't tolerate, how much better equipped to spot manipulation and shut it down before it takes root. My phone buzzes. It's Leonard. Still on for dinner tonight? Absolutely. I'm leaving in 20 minutes. Perfect. I love you. I love you too. I put my phone down and finish the report I'm working on. In an hour, I'll go home to my house. The one I fought for. The one that's truly mine now. I'll have dinner with my husband, the one who chose me and keeps choosing me every single day. We'll talk about our days, our plans, our future. And nowhere in that future is there room for people who want to tear me down. For toxic family members or manipulative in-laws or partners who won't defend me. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it thoroughly. The house was mine. The career was mine. The life was mine. And I stopped letting anyone make themselves at home in my space without earning it. That's the real ending, not the dramatic courtroom scene or the dismissed lawsuit or the restraining order. The real ending is this. Me, in my corner office, going home to my chosen family, living a life that's completely and totally mine. That's the revenge. That's the victory. That's what it looks like when you refuse to be destroyed by people who want to see you fail. And it feels perfect.